Foundation single crochet. We start with a chain 2, then you insert your hook into that first chain and pull up a loop. So you have 2 loops on your hook. Instead of completing pull through 2 to finish a single crochet, we will pull through 1 loop and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So when we turn it sideways, that pull through 1 makes a chain on the bottom, and then our single crochet posts come out of that. So for the second one, you go into that chain in the bottom, being careful to put your hook under both of those loops of the chain, pull the yarn up, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So as we're working, it looks like we're working vertically, and then we will just turn that horizontally for our row. So for the ups and downs pattern, you will work a foundation single crochet for as long as you want for this pattern, but it does need to be in a multiple of 10 and then 1 extra, so 10 plus 1. So I'm going to make 21 foundation single crochet for my sample for this ups and downs. So you can go ahead and make that. The pattern started with 131. You want to be careful when you work your foundation single crochet that you don't work too tightly. If you are too tight, once you do your next row, you will find that it'll curve like this if the foundation row is too tight. So you want it to be a bit loose so that when you work your next row, it lays nice and flat and straight. A starting double crochet. So you can start a double crochet row the standard way with a chain 3, which will act as a double crochet. It doesn't resemble a double crochet very much. So there's an alternate way for a starting double crochet. There's actually several ways for this. There we go. So the designer uses a half double crochet and a chain 1 to act as a starting double crochet. And you can see the 1 loop here crossing over resembles a double crochet more than what a chain 3 did. I've learned a technique sometimes called a twisted double crochet. So after you've turned, I just make my loop a little bit longer, yarn over with that loop, and I use my finger to hold it in place, insert the hook in the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 as my starting double crochet. So the first double crochet of the row, you can use some of those techniques if you don't prefer that chain 3. Front loop single crochet. Normally when we insert our hook to work a single crochet, we go under both loops of the stitch to pull up our loop and finish our single crochet. For a front loop single crochet, instead of inserting your hook under both of these loops, you will just put your hook under that first loop or the front loop, the loop that is closest to you, and pull up your stitch, yarn over, pull through 2. So for a front loop stitch, you insert your hook under the loop closest to you instead of both loops at the top of a stitch. If we turn on the other side, then you can see how that back loop gives a bit of a line or a ridge on the work. Working the front loop treble crochet. So you can see how I've made 2 stitches here. I have worked the treble crochet into that front loop, or that loop that is left from when we worked those front loop singles. So you yarn over twice to make a treble, and into this next front loop you insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 3 times for a treble crochet. Now you can see when I do it that way how this loop has been stretched or pulled. compared to these other two. So I'm now going to show you how to avoid stretching that loop so much. So yarn over twice, insert your hook. As you yarn over and begin to pull through, I'm using my thumb to pinch that loop and hold it in place so it doesn't stretch. And now I move up to where I just pulled that loop through on the hook, and I pinch that first loop on my hook as I'm yarning over and pulling through the two. Now I've already worked that stitch, so it's stretched a bit more than usual. I'll show you that again. So we'll skip the stitch behind, double crochet in the next. So front loop treble, insert our hook, use your thumb to pinch that loop tight to hold it in place, pinch the next loop, and then the loop doesn't stretch as much. Now some yarns will stretch more than other yarns. That can't be avoided, but without that pinching, as I showed you first, it will stretch that loop up a fair bit. Okay, and you can see how this loop is pulled farther high than these other loops. So you want to try and pinch that loop as you work it, and do the pull throughs for the treble to avoid stretching that loop. Working surface crochet slip stitches or surface slip stitches. So I have just joined my yarn around the post of the single crochet of what would be your row 15. And a surface slip stitch is just a slip stitch that sort of is laying across the top of our work. The best description that I was given to think of this is to think of your hook like a sewing machine. It's going to go in and out of the holes, and each time it goes down, it's pulling up the thread from below. So if I were to hold it like that, I'll put my hook down, your working yarn stays in back, the hook pulls it up and through the loop on the hook. Down, pull up the yarn and through the loop on your hook. Now that's awkward for me to hold my hook that way, but it shows or demonstrates sort of the sewing machine idea. So you go in, pull the yarn up and through. So when I'm working single crochets, I'm usually going into the same hole where the stitch on the next row went through to find the yarn behind with my hook, and like that. So I can turn my work on this one. I insert my hook. If I turn the work over, you can see how the hook is grabbing that yarn to pull through and through the loop on my hook. So sometimes this takes a bit of practice to keep the tension on that yarn tight enough that the slip stitches aren't loose, but you don't want it tight that it pulls the slip stitches. Some people find it helpful to go up a hook size or two as they work surface crochet or surface slip stitches so that they don't pull the work too tightly. Reach the end of the row, I just finish off around that final post with a slip stitch and fasten off. Starting a row with a single crochet. Oftentimes you will see patterns that chain one and then single crochet into that first stitch to begin the row, and you're certainly welcome to do it that way. So the designer, instead of a chain one, just goes into the first stitch, pulls up a loop and pull through two for the starting single crochet. Working the bobble stitch. So I'm looking at row 19 is the first row in the pattern that starts with the bobble stitches. So we want to single crochet in these first 5 stitches. 2, 3, 4. We're not going to complete the 5th stitch, but we'll bring up our loop. We want to keep the color A2 on the side facing us of our work, which is actually the wrong side facing us. We're going to finish this 5th single crochet with color B. I'll just sort of snug the color A. And then we're working a bobble stitch in the next stitch. So I'm going to be working over top of the color A and the tail of my color B. So we yarn over, insert into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2. We'll do that 4 more times. So it's 5 times that we've pulled up a loop. So we should have 6 loops on our hook. We yarn over with color B to pull through all 6 loops. Switch back to color A for a chain 1. And then we'll single crochet in the next stitch, working over color B, and now we'll put hook under color B to enclose it in this next single crochet, over color B, under color B, and so on. See how we have those two-tone, the baubles in another color. For the next row then, you'll be working double crochet into these baubles. So starting with your starting double crochet in your preferred method. We want to pay attention to where we have carried the yarn on the other side. So this one I can do regularly. On this one, I want to make sure that my hook goes under that carried yarn as well to secure that in this double crochet stitch. So it just locks it in a bit more securely as we crochet over that. We work a double crochet into the bauble as well. So hopefully these tips and tricks are enough to help you out for this pattern, and enjoy, and can't wait to see your finished projects.